Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Princeton Public Library's Art Talk for our summer art show that is currently on display on our second floor. And I'm Janie Herman, the Public Programming Librarian, Manager of Adult Programming at the library. And when I became a librarian many years ago, I never realized that part of my job would be to start curating art shows such as this. And it's been a great pleasure. And especially this summer, working with two fabulously female feminist artists to put on a show called Letter Love. And it's a love letter to libraries, to the alphabet, to words in a very unique way. They're using the alphabet to inspire conversation about belonging and about identity. And if you go to our library website, you can see information about that underneath our art exhibit, but I really would encourage you, go to the second floor if you have not yet. There's postcards there and you can pick one of those up. You can interact with the exhibit, and if you do, you can get a free tiger sticker and learn more about these artists tonight. You're going to want to go for sure. So I'm going to introduce both artists and then we'll bring them on the screen. So first we have Gwen Simul. Since 2003, Gwen has made her living as an independent artist, creating figurative paintings that are brightly colored, boldly painted, and joyfully feminist. Her work has been featured on sites like Hyperallergic, Boing Boing, Newsweek, and Bust, and she speaks regularly about questioning copyright, most notably at TEDx Geneva. Born in Saudi Arabia, Gwen has lived most of her life in France and the US. She claims Portland, Oregon as her hometown, and currently lives on Long Beach Island here in New Jersey. It's a very international slate tonight, by the way. So next up, we have Mick Bockleman, who was born in Quezon City in the Philippines. She was uprooted and replanted to Germany, Israel, and finally to the US, where she received her degree from UC Berkeley. She is inspired by the vibrancy and strength of the Filipino culture. And she uses, I hope I'm going to say this right, I should have asked you, Mick, abacá, to celebrate the multi-layered experiences. Her work has been shown at the Maganda Club, Allied Artists of America, Phillips Mills, Trenton City Museum, and in Munich. So those are the basic bios of our artists tonight and a little bit about the art exhibit. And I've lost myself on the screen, hang on. Okay, so let's have Gwen and Mick turn on their cameras and come on screen and join us. Okay, welcome. And they're saying hi. So how this is going to work is that Gwen is going to go first and give us her talk, and then Mick will go. And then at the end, we will have them both come back on and I help moderate the Q&A. So as I said, put your questions in the Q&A or pop them into the chat, and Gwen, take it away. Mick and I are going to disappear and let you take the show over.
Hello, and thank you, Janie, for that lovely introduction. Today, I am going to focus on Baby C's ABCs, which is the main body of work that I have on display at the library currently. It's an animal alphabet book, and it's pretty special. I guess I would say that, but I think the thing that makes it especially special is that in each of the 26 images in the book, there are 26 first names embedded in the painting. So I think you can see Annie here, for example, on the A page. So the names do match, the first letter of the name matches the page that it's on. And these names come from two sources, really. They come from the people who funded the making and the printing of this book. It is self-published. There were 80 some people who funded it to the tune of almost $12,000. And they were picking names of people that they wanted to honor in some way, or of the children that they intended to give copies of the books to, so that the kids would be able to find their own names in the book. And the rest of the names were chosen by me, and they were chosen mainly to introduce the young readers who were getting their hands on this book to different cultures as they were learning letter recognition by finding the names amongst the brushstrokes. They were hopefully also learning about cultural recognition through these first names. So this book is obviously vibrant and thoroughly positive, but it comes from a less than happy place. And before we talk about the pretty and the shiny, I do want to talk a little bit about that less happy stuff. And that really started in 2016. I had just moved to Surf City, New Jersey, where I live in Ocean County. And 2 Ocean County libraries had invited me to show some of my work in their space. And I was thrilled about it. And I proposed that I show some of the original pieces from Crime Against Nature. And this book is about the way that the natural world doesn't always fit with our traditional notions of gender and sex. So for example, I'm just going to read you a little bit of it. Here's an image of leopard slugs, and they're in fact mating. This white stuff is their reproductive organs intertwining. And the text on the facing page says, sometimes boys and girls are girls and boys. And the smaller text explains that these slugs are hermaphrodites. So that's what that means. On the next page, some species can't be described in terms of girls and boys. And the example is coho salmon. There are 3 genders in coho salmon, 2 male and 1 female. And just one more quick example, there are 4 genders among white-throated sparrows. So this is obviously a pro-queer kind of science book. And when I pitched this book, the images from this book, to the 2 Ocean County libraries, they were enthusiastic about it to begin with. And I had no idea that it was probably only because they didn't understand the concepts that went with the animal images. They had not taken the time to look at what I had sent them. It wasn't until they asked me for promotional text that they could put in their brochures and stuff that things went weird, which is to say that my contacts at the libraries ghosted me. They stopped answering emails, didn't answer phone calls, and eventually it became clear to me that they would not be a good space for me to show my work in, because as an artist, I need to be aware that I won't be at the venue with my work to engage in conversations with people. It's going to be the people, the employees of the venue that are going to engage in conversations around my work. And so I need the venue and the people at the venue to be 1000% behind my work, or else it's just bad for me. I mean, if a patron comes in and says, you know, I hate this work, and the librarian says, me too, it's not good for my work. It's not good for the library. It's not good for the community. So I wrote to the librarians who were ghosting me and I said, actually, I'm not going to show with you. And strangely enough, they answered immediately and said, okay, that they were fine with me not showing my work. So from there, let's fast forward to 2019. I was invited to show in another public library, this time in Montclair, New Jersey. Now I'm going to start the slides that I have prepared. So it was for a show called Love and Fear. And this show was curated by an individual who was working with Studio Montclair, which is an artist collective in Montclair. And Studio Montclair had a relationship with the public library where Studio Montclair was in charge of putting up art at the library. So that is 3 entities that I've named that I was interacting with for this project of putting my work up in this group show. And as any business person can tell you, when you have 3 contacts for a project, it will probably go wrong. And hoo boy, did this ever go wrong. So this is one of the pieces that ended up in the show. This was more on the love side. I think that's pretty obvious. So is, oops, I can't seem to get it to advance. This is the problem. We tried everything ahead of time, but not that. Let me see if I can get it to work a different way. I'm sorry about this. So I'm going to show you some slides of the works that were on display at that show, Love and Fear. And hopefully, there we go. I'm going to try this way. So there's obviously the sunset painting that is, you know, all the pretty and the nice. And you're going to get, I guess, peeks of the images to come. It's the only way that I can make them advance, I'm sorry to say. So there was like the sunset piece to represent the love aspect, this portrait of my partner, which was painted in 2005, also to represent the love aspect. And then this portrait, or this painting of a squirrel unraveling her brain. This was more on the fear side. Obviously, it was a representation of my anxiety. This is about the patriarchy for me. This is how I feel because of the patriarchy. This is me thinking about global warming, as is this. And then there was this painting, 114 paintings of, or portraits of Donald Trump and sort of his cohort of enablers. It includes people like Sarah Palin and Jeff Sessions, Mitch McConnell. You can pick out lots of faces in there. Donald Trump has Vladimir Putin in his mouth. So this anti-Trump painting was definitely on theme with love and fear, the fear aspect, and it remained part of the show throughout the entire show at the library. But this anti-Trump painting did not. It was hung, and then 30 minutes afterwards, it was removed from the installation. So this painting is called Hello Shitty, and that is a reference to Hello Kitty. You can sort of see kitty-like images around the face of the former president and on his hat. They are sort of Hello Kitty, but given Trump hair and other elements to make them Hello Shitty instead of Hello Kitty. Now, the reason why I'm referring to Hello Kitty with Donald Trump is because Hello Kitty was designed specifically to not have a mouth. And this was so that consumers who were engaging with the Hello Kitty character could project their own feelings onto Hello Kitty. So she was always thinking what they were thinking. And I had observed similar behaviors with Donald Trump supporters. They always believed that he was with them all the way. He felt as downtrodden as they did, you know, even though he's a millionaire, maybe billionaire, he could relate to them so completely, and they were so convinced of it. And so this painting is about that strange sort of effect that he has on his supporters. There are other details in the painting, like for example, this $14 bill with Andrew Jackson's face on it, 14 to reference the 14 words that white supremacists use to talk about their vision for the world. There's Putin once again, this time on the $1 bill, because in Trump's America, and even in post-Trump America, what is hopefully post-Trump America, Putin is sort of a founding father of our new democracy, unfortunately. And in the upper portion, the upper right, you can see on the $1 million bill, there's a little bit of Jesus's face. This is a reference to the prosperity gospel, this perversion of Christianity, wherein people believe that if you are wealthy, that means that God has accepted you and loves you and adores you, and so has given you this wealth. So your privilege is a sign that you are chosen. This painting was not easy for me to make. I am a woman who was raised in the patriarchy, so I am very good at making myself pretty and at making the world around me pretty. And to do anything else, to make an ugly painting, which was the intention of this piece, was not an easy thing for me. It was a very vulnerable thing, actually, especially very specifically the image of the bull that is crapping on the syringe right in the middle of this detail image to represent, you know, the bull crap in the syringe. That was hard for me to do. And so that, and also including Make America White Again. But I wanted to make this record of who Trump was. I wanted to make a painting called Hello Shitty. It was important to me. So this is on the golf clubs in the background. It very distinctly says Hello Shitty, a reference to Hello Kitty and how it often uses its name on the stuff that's made with Hello Kitty on it. So this painting, as I said, was removed after just 30 minutes on display. I was not there when it was removed. I got a phone call from the curator, and she did not say that she was unhappy that it was removed, but sort of the implication was that it was not her decision. What had happened was that a group of library patrons had arrived, they'd seen the piece, and it sounds like they agreed with me in that they would have wanted to have the 45th president removed from office. So we were in agreement, but like me, they could not make that happen. What they could make happen was to have this painting removed from their library. And so they were going to do everything they could to make that happen, understandably. I suppose. So that was one of the reasons that was given for this piece being taken down. The other reason that was given was that there could not be any expletives on the library wall. So obviously the word shitty appears in the painting. Now, here's the thing about this painting. Its title is Hello Shitty, but when the curator and I started in conversation, she did ask me to rename this piece. And so I suggested Hello Kitty President instead. I didn't understand that there might be some weirdness around using cuss words. I didn't really understand what was going on. I was just excited to be showing the work. So that sort of becomes a part of the story, because as I'm sort of digesting this rejection by my audience, by people who agreed with me, of a piece that was hard for me to make, as I'm digesting it all, and I'm doing it sort of publicly because I'm an artist and that is part of what I do. So I'm on social media and I'm talking about how it feels to have work taken down. The Studio Montclair, the artist collective that has the agreement with the library, their representatives are constantly on my threads, sort of arguing with me or telling me this is how it really is. And I get more and more frustrated. And so eventually I do get the press involved. It does appear in Newsweek. And this is both good and terrible. The good is that the painting was reinstated. The terrible is that Studio Montclair threw me under the bus. They told Shane Croucher of Newsweek that I had misled them by titling the piece Hello Kitty President, so they didn't know that shitty was in it. And this is not true. I have an email exchange and with the curator, to prove that I had been totally forthright with them. And the thing is that I couldn't get anyone to correct it. I couldn't get Newsweek to correct it. It's a huge institution. I couldn't get Studio Montclair to correct it. I didn't even try to reach out to the library. The director of the library was not involved with any of this at this point. He didn't seem, I guess, particularly interested. I don't think it's an excuse that he was ignorant of what was going on. He may disagree with me on that, but I do believe it is the venue's responsibility, especially when it is publicly funded, for them to be aware of what's going on in their space. So I was dealing with 3 institutions that didn't care about what I had to say to defend myself or what I had to say, period. I could not get the lie corrected for, it was almost a year before I got it corrected. And I can tell you about that if you're interested in how I finally got it corrected. But the point is that all of this was extremely hurtful to me. As an independent business owner, my name is everything. I don't have the generations of credibility that institutions have in order to be able to exist. I have just me and my name. And so to have my honesty questioned in Newsweek was a hit for me and a hit to my self-esteem, among other things. And so on the 2-year anniversary of this censorship, I decided to find out if I was the only one who had such a big reaction to being censored. So what I did is I found other artists who had been censored, and anti-Trump artists who'd been censored. I found Paula Bullwinkle, that's the artist who created this painting. She made a whole series of paintings of women with rodents, and in the background, there was quotes from the then president. And because the then president often said horrible things, in those quotes, there were words like pussy, like you can see in this piece. There was, other words as well, but like pussy. And so she was showing this work in a commercial space, and it was hung and then it was removed. But because it was a commercial space, there's no constitutional question there. It's not a question of her First Amendment rights. It is not a publicly funded space. So the commercial space can decide to remove it, and there are no legal repercussions to that. What ended up happening for Paula Bullwinkle was that her community rallied around her. The space said, oh, we took it down because of the bad words. But there was a sense that it was for politics. And so the community wanted her to know that they supported her. So she got to show the work in other venues. And when I talked to her about it, she was pleased that this had happened. It was hugely helpful to her as an artist, to her creativity. Juxtapose that with Serhat Tanyolasar, a Turkish-American artist who has been censored multiple times. This is a very small detail of his very large piece, a print called The Death of Innocence. And as you can see from this detail, although it's not super clear, it's an orgy, and most of the figures have Trump's face on them. Some of them have Steve Bannon or other people as well. And this piece was censored from a display at a publicly funded college. And much like with me, the college was doing everything to avoid any kind of semblance of wrongdoing, and they did whatever they could to throw him under the bus, including dredging up the fact that he had been censored at a different university for a different piece. And a few years down the line, he is having trouble finding well-paying work as a professor. It has very negatively impacted him. And what he and I have in common, Sirhat Tenyolosar and I have in common, is that we were both censored by publicly funded institutions. So institutions that had a need to follow the Constitution and protect our First Amendment rights. They weren't doing it. And so they then had a need to throw us under the bus and make us look bad. And unfortunately, the press sort of went along with that. I should say that if you are an artist who finds yourself in this position, there are institutions who will help you. I did not know this when it first happened to me, so I like to give the National Coalition Against Censorship a plug. They're institutions that are specifically created to help artists in this situation, to put pressure on public library directors, as they did for me, or on schools. And it's not just the NCAC, there are others that do it as well. But so for me, the way that I sort of metabolized all of this negativity, I even had people saying, well, you should be so happy because all press is good press. Sure, I guess, but they weren't understanding sort of the deeper layers. When an artwork is removed, having it reinstated like my piece was, doesn't just fix it. It's not just over. The trauma is still there. The blow to your self-esteem is still there as an artist. And so the way that I sort of navigated it was to decide that I was going to make work that was 100% understandable. I had felt misunderstood with my anti-Trump piece, and now I wanted to make work that I knew for a fact people would understand what I was meaning. And more than that, I wanted to know who my audience was for the work. So as I said before, there were 80-some people who funded this work, and they were the people I had in mind when I made the paintings, because not only were they telling me what names to include in the images, they were telling me which animals I should paint for each of the letters. This was by design. I sold the rights to commission what animal should represent Eve, for example, Echidna. So here are some process images of Havanese dog. H is for Havanese dog. I'm showing you the layers that go into making one of my paintings. This was a really joyful experience. I love doing commission work anyway. I do commission portraiture and other stuff all the time. So this was bringing that deep connection with an audience member that you get when you do commission work and bringing it into open market work, bringing it into a larger project. And I was just loving every minute of it. Knowing exactly who this work was for was healing for me after having been rejected by an audience in the way that I was rejected. So this is the final H is for Havanese dog painting. There were some challenges with working though with what my audience was giving me. I wanted to insert more politics into this because I had decided after I was censored, you know what? I am done with adults. They are beyond help. I don't even want to make art for them. I want to make art for young people because I can still influence them to be open-minded. And so I was looking for ways to turn these species into their own kinds of activists. So each of the species is described in the back of the book and with just 2 or 3 sentences. And I really picked very specific details about these animals with the intention of directing young minds into certain directions. So for example, with the cod, a wild cat found in South America, they come in this black spot on tan kind of coloration that you see here represented, but they also come in black spot on black fur. So black on black and black on tan are both totally natural for cods. The idea being, of course, that species often have multiple colors and it's totally cool. Same thing for the yabby, which is an Australian crawfish. It's known for being this bright blue because that's the version of the animal that a lot of people who have aquariums really want in their homes, but they come in lots of colors and it's all natural. When I discovered that U would be for unicorn, here I'm showing you process images again, I was ecstatic because I love unicorns, but I don't love how the originating mythology, at least in the Western world, for unicorns is that they are white because white symbolizes purity. For me, as a visual artist and a painter, white is just like black in the sense that white is a combination of all the colors of the rainbow when you're talking about light, and black is also a combination of all the colors of the rainbow when you're talking about painting. And so I was excited to be able to make this black unicorn. This show at the Princeton Public Library is so incredibly important in my healing journey that will hopefully be over, the healing journey from the censorship. And Janie and the other librarians have played an enormous role in that. She always listened very carefully to me when I explained the work that I wanted to show. She made me feel heard, and she has displayed that again and again over the course of the show. And this is the dream for artists. They want to be listened to by the venues. They want to be taken seriously. I did not feel like I was taken seriously by those other libraries. And here I was, and it has been really good. So thank you.
Okay, Gwen, thank you so much for that heartfelt talk. And yeah, Gwen and I, we clicked from the start, and I understood inherently what she was getting at. And it's just been such a joy to get to know you. We started planning this show actually back in February, was it, or March, during the pandemic, hoping that we would have a chance to get it up for the summer months. It ties in with the library's theme of reading colors your world. And what I especially appreciate about Gwen was that she knew that this was going to be the theme, especially for our kids summer reading program. And so since the exhibit's on the second floor, which is meant for adults, she found a way to encourage kids to come down and see the exhibit. She hung it at kid height. So if you go into our reading room where the ABCs are hung, it's at kid height. And that's on purpose because she wanted the kids to look at it. And if the kids go, each painting has the animal fact. And if the kids then go to our reference librarians and tell them a fact that they learned from Gwen's paintings, they get their own little sticker, and the kids love it. We're going through stickers like wildfire, and it's getting whole families down looking at it. And then we were also able to put some of the works from the Crime Against Nature up in the other parts of our galleries because we have a large area. So the Baby Sees ABCs is in our reading room, but then we had other spaces, but we were able to hang up some of the other works and have her do an art talk for Pride Month about crime against nature and about how those paintings represent diversity in the animal kingdom in all ways, and especially in how animals love each other and how we can, portray that into our human emotions. So Gwen, it's just been such a pleasure to display this work. And so we were looking for someone to pair with Gwen, and I had the great pleasure of meeting Mick through this newly formed Princeton's Artist Directory. And as soon as I saw Mick's work, I was so entranced by it and what it represented. And in a way, I just knew it was going to be a perfect balance to this colorful display that was coming from Gwen, for that I wanted to have something that was going to be balancing it and in a much simpler way, but still connecting. And so I want to bring Mick on to talk about her work. And I just love how this pairing has worked out. And I just love everything about this. So I'm going to stop yakking now and turn it over to Mick.
Hey, everyone. I want to thank you for coming tonight. And I'm going to start with sharing my screen and just telling you about my background and how I came to this current work that's in the library. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can everybody see? All right. So this is me with my parents and my big brother, Joe. My little brother is not in here, sorry, Max, but this is in the Philippines. I was born in the Philippines, close to the capital of Manila. And at the age of 5, we left for Germany. That's when I went to kindergarten and I learned my German. And after that, we went to Israel, where I learned my English at a Church of Scotland school. So every time we moved, I assimilated to the culture. And every time we moved, I lost a bit of my Filipino culture as well. Eventually, we landed in the US, where I went to high school in Potsdam, Pennsylvania, and at Monrovia High School in California. And that's where I became American, a Valley girl, maybe. And so a part of my identity got lost along the way. Now I live in Princeton, New Jersey, and I have a home studio here. My background is actually in painting, but it was only since 2016, since election or so, that I began to explore my identity and trying to find my way back to my Filipino roots. The work that is currently up at Princeton Library is part of that journey. And this is called Reimagined World. So for those who can't get to the library, I'm going to show you the works individually so you can get a taste of it. This one is called Maganda, which means beautiful in Filipino. And tonight I'll share with you how I got to working with abacá and manila envelopes, how the work changed over time, and what inspired me to create Reimagined World and Maganda. These two works are an encouragement to focus on beauty we see every day and use it to reimagine the world we live in. One of the ways I connect to my roots is to talk to my mom. Here she is with her siblings, the red arrow, and she is here in Bicol, the province she grew up in the Philippines. And I asked her what her fondest memories were growing up. She said she loved seeing abacá fiber hung out to dry. It would look like gold in the sun. She said, it's a shame that not a lot of people in the US really knew of abacá, also known as Manila hemp. This fiber, it comes from a banana plant native to the Philippines. And she said that nobody really knows abacá, but everyone knows of the Manila envelope, which was originally made of abacá fiber. So to honor our conversation, I got Manila envelope and I got abacá from her hometown, and I tried to incorporate that into my work. The first iterations looked like this. So this is my mom in the 1970s wearing her terno, and it's a special dress worn to occasions where it's a party or a celebration. And it's has iconic butterfly sleeves. So I cut out the flesh and substituted the Manila envelope in the back. This is her terno from the 1970s. That's what it actually looks like. So that's her. This is my father and mother in Bicol. So I'm trying to document the memories. This is my uncle with my brother and I in the Philippines. This is me in Israel. My brother in Israel feeding a bird. My brother again. My mom pregnant. My uncle Andy. So those were the first iterations of the Manila envelope work. The abacá that I got from Bicol was also used, and I experimented on them. These are Filipino artists here in the US. Their silhouettes cut out. This is me and my father. And during this time, this was actually during the pandemic, during lockdown, there were very heavy emotions that were going on around me, in me. As a nation, we were going through the grieving process, anger, all sorts of huge emotions. And it was just a heavy burden to bear. So I tried to incorporate play into my work just to lighten it up a bit and to balance it. And that's how I grounded myself during this time. And so during a conversation with one of the Filipino artists that I know, Jed Marino, he suggested doing Scrabble pieces. And this is how I translated that. More Scrabble pieces. And these Scrabble pieces you'll see at the Princeton Library. Another place you'll see them is at an exhibit at Princeton University this October. And it'll be set up in a different way. But if you want to get an update on that, just sign up for my newsletter and I'll remind you of the date in October. But for the current show here at Princeton Library, the turning point was this year when I attended a Healing Justice Circle for Asian women, and it addressed the anti-Asian hate that was going on. And the women just needed a space to be themselves and not to, be at a protest, or just, they could just relax and rest and be heard. And so we didn't stop at that. One of the questions that was posed was, what would a world look like where you would feel safe and powerful? And I like that question because it looks towards the future and it gives us hope. And it lets us reimagine things instead of feeling stuck in a situation. So after that, I started cutting up manila envelopes. I didn't know where this was gonna go. So this was an iteration of the manila envelope, sculptural, but during this day, I went through different creations, and one of them was this. This is when my mind turned off and I didn't think of a composition, and what came out was the jasmine flowers of my mother, and plumeria. Those are the big flowers. And this somehow gave me solace, this gave me joy, and it just flowed naturally out of me. So this is the first ever manila envelope that I cut out. That's actually in the library right now. And so that's how it is. And I just kept making more. This is the actual envelope in the library. The second one is me embedded in the flowers. I get to rest. That's where I feel safe. I feel powerful when I get to rest. This is, again, the terno of my mother with butterfly sleeves. This is Mayon volcano, and it's a volcano located in Bicol. My mom used to see it from her home. And this is Lapu-Lapu, which is Filipino national hero who killed Magellan in 1521, I believe. This is my aunt and my mom. These are silhouettes, and they're holding my little brother. And they're connected by jasmine. Jasmine in the Philippines is called sampaguita. These are garlic cloves. This garlic reminds me of my mother's cooking, and it runs through my veins. This band is called the Linda Lindas, and they're a teen punk band in LA. They gave me so much joy when they sang Racist, Sexist Boy this year. But one of the lines that I really like is, we rebuild what you destroy. And so that gives me a lot of joy. This is my father and my brother in the Philippines. My brother on a swing. My dog, Sunny, Lapu-Lapu Obama Boekelmann. Fork and spoon, I use those to eat my garlic fried rice. And the solidarity symbol for those who defend and protect the marginalized. So those were, that's my Reimagined World. That gave me a lot of hope during times of crises. And this work, it's a site-specific work for the library. It's called Maganda. And this was inspired by a talk I had with the elders of my family. And I asked them, what words do you want to pass down to the younger generation? And one of them was this, Maganda, which means beautiful in Filipino. And what struck me is that they all suffered hardships, but the things they focused on was Maganda, or the beautiful. And that's what they think is important to be handed down to the next generation. Yeah, so I thought that was really good, because that is what I also need to focus on to reimagine a world that is different from ours right now. So if you haven't seen the work, I encourage you to go to the library and see the pieces, and also Gwen's art pieces. Thanks so much.
This is the time where we have question and answer. So you can just pop it right in the chat if that's easiest, or put something in the Q&A. And to get us going, I'm just going to ask both of you, I just was wondering, at what age did you kind of realize that you wanted to make your career path or your living with art? Was it from a young age, or was it something you came to later? When did that journey really start for you?
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm a late starter. So it was, my son was a toddler and we were living in Germany, and I was burnt out. My husband encouraged me to sign up for an adult art workshop at the local library, I think, and went there, and they told me to get a brush and start painting. It was kind of like an abstract class, and something in my heart just bloomed and blossomed. And that's when I decided, wow, this is a real thing that I've neglected in my life, and that I need to take this seriously. I need to nurture this.
Okay. And Gwen?
My story starts earlier because I had an older brother who was, like many older siblings, sort of hard on me. But the one thing that he always complimented was my drawing. And so I think I've been chasing that, tough audience member ever since, and hoping for those, that praise, that affirmation from them. Yeah. But I have a question also for Mick, if I can. I know there's other questions
that'd be
too.
great.
But I'm always so impressed with artists who have multiple media that they work in. Do you have one that's favorite? Do you have trouble going between them, or is it natural? Like I'm not that way. I'm very much a painter and a drawer, so I'm always fascinated. Can you talk more about it, please?
Yeah, I do love painting. Just because I just love paint in general. I started with acrylic, then oil, and fell in love with oil just because it's so forgiving. I can push it around. But what I did find is I tried sculpture. I tried like the chisel, and I tried printing things. I like things that are direct, that's in my hand, a utensil, and that I can make a direct mark on. I don't like processes in between. And so I think that when I cut things out, it feels like drawing to me. So it's not so far-fetched from drawing, painting, like kind of the same thing. Yeah.
Great question. I love this comment from Sujatha in the audience, who said that she loved listening to the story, Mick. And she says that she's also been moving countries. I've tried not to lose my identity as an Indian, but at this point I realize I'm an amalgamation of all cultures, and maybe that's my identity. And, Gwen, you've also moved around quite a bit. And as it is, I am a Canadian now who is coming up to the point of having lived in the US as long as I lived in Canada, but I still very much identify as a Canadian, despite having been in the US now for about 20 years. So, and I think you're right, the places that we've been, and I moved around a lot as a youngster as well as an Army brat, so I think we do become an amalgamation. But I really love how, Mick, you're trying to reconnect with your roots. And Gwen, I love how you're trying to reconnect with the joy of painting through your baby C's, ABCs, and how that was a healing journey for you, and sharing all of that. And so are there other questions that are coming in from the audience? Oh, here's one for Mick. Has reconnecting with your culture through your art changed your relationship with your Filipino roots?
Yes. Okay, so I have reconnected with my culture in different ways. So through my artwork, but I've also reconnected with other Filipino American artists and seeing what they're doing in their work. And before, I never did that before. I was just, I don't think I had contact with Filipino American artists. So with that awareness or this kind of priority for me, I sought it out and I emailed Filipino American artists in New York, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. And now I'm in a collective. And what has changed is I think I've become more whole. So I do agree with Sujata. I am an amalgamation of all these cultures, but I felt like it was skewed, so it wasn't balanced. Like I didn't know the history of the Philippines, my language, I lost that. So I knew German. I mean, I'm more fluent in German than Filipino. And I kind of want to, I'm always about balance, trying to regain balance. So yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell, I know, Gwen, you just came back from a trip to Oregon, and you say that you still consider Oregon your home despite having lived in France. And how did that come about then? And was going back to there reconnecting for you? Did it inspire you in any way for a new art series or?
Yeah, so I moved around a lot as a kid, but I went through puberty in Portland. And so I feel like that's the place that really is most formative to me, because going through puberty is not an easy thing. And so doing it in that space sort of made it my home. I lived in Jersey growing up. I lived in California. I lived in France, like you said. France is sort of a forever home because my grandparents were there and I would visit with them. But Oregon was just so formative to me. And I think it has a lot to do with my politics, with my values, and with my desire and ability to speak out. There is a sort of, I guess, an interest in others that I'm not saying it doesn't exist elsewhere, but that seemed to exist specifically in Portland for me. And so I felt very nurtured there and able to, share about my reflections of what I was seeing. I think it really did form me as an artist as well as a person.
Yeah. And Yin Yi from the audience is thanking you, Gwen, for sharing your artist journey and saying it is hard to get heard and to remain authentic. And I love how you, Baby C's ABCs came from a place, it's such a pure joy, that book and that series of paintings. And I love how you reclaimed your own voice through that. So Mick, tell us what's up next for you.
So what's up next is I'm going on an artist residency this Friday in Chautauqua, New York for 5 weeks, which is really exciting because I don't know, we're supposed to be experimenting with our work, so I might come back as a totally different person. Another exciting thing is the Filipino American Artist Collective that I manage called NEXI, Northeast by Southeast, will have an artist talk and an exhibit at Princeton University this October 6th. It's in honor of Filipino American History Month. And if you want to get a reminder, just go to my website and sign up for my newsletter.
It's great. And it's just, it's a coincidence. And I'm going to be connecting with Mick with us when she gets back from her residency, because she has quite a bit on, is that I've been in touch with, the library's been in touch with a group called Make Us Visible New Jersey, which is trying to highlight AAPI heritage and cultures in the schools and in public institutions. And so the library is planning for October 18th to do a poetry art kind of event. It'll be through Zoom. And we chose that day because it is the day of the first landing of the first Filipinos in North America. And so, which I didn't know, and I was fascinated by that. So I think we're going to try and get Mick involved in that in some way. She's going to get dragged in, I think. So, I just kind of like, what I really love is when connections like this start, they seem to flow outwards and connect us all. And if you're not aware of Make Us Visible New Jersey, they do have a website. They're just getting going. A really great group of activists who are really, pushing to have AAPI culture and heritage become more visible especially in our school system and in the curriculum, so that these kind of facts about this are heard. And so that's great. And congratulations on the residency. I know that's a really big step. And you're also building your own studio. Is that not correct?
Yes. So I have a studio here in Princeton, and I'm gonna have studio tours. If you'd like to get reminders or invites, sign up at the website. I posted in the chat, so makethestudio.com.
Yeah.
I just wanted to comment too on Gwen, what she said at the end, how important it is to create these spaces where you aren't censored, and it's so important for an artist to express themselves, because that's how we get innovation and how we get ideas, new ideas going. And so I want to thank you, Janie, for creating the space here on Zoom and also at the library, that it is important. So I really value it, and thank you again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big advocate for free speech, and not that the library, we are still a library and we can't do everything, but I think what Gwen pointed out is so important, is to have that conversation and to have that understanding, and not shy away from a difficult conversation. I actually had shared with Mick and Gwen that we did have an artist many years ago but it was before the show was hung, well in advance, weeks in advance, who there was some work that we couldn't hang just because of public decency rulings. But that's a conversation that, yes, you have well in advance with the artist. Other work was selected. The intent of the show was still maintained. But this artist did want to show parts of the female anatomy that we said we just can't have in a public library, because we are a public institution. So, you have to maintain that, but you need to have those conversations, and that's what it's about. That's what's being respectful towards the artist and coming to an agreement. So Gwen, what's up next for you now that you're back from you were out west for about a month, so now you're back, and
Yeah,
what's up?
I was gone for 7 weeks. We drove across the US to Oregon, stayed there for almost 3 weeks, and then drove back. And it was amazing to be outside after taking the self-isolation really seriously. It was also amazing to camp in order to still stay away from people and be safe, and arrive at my parents' home. My 97-year-old father is home, hopefully without bringing the pandemic directly to him. But we focused on parks a lot instead of going to museums, which is maybe more where my partner and I might normally go when we're on a road trip. We went to a lot of national parks. And so I think I'm going to be making some paintings based on the parks and the animals that we encountered. So there'll be some of that coming up. And then also I'm still working on a book about how to paint a portrait, and includes a lot of stories of my evolution as a portrait artist. So that is an ongoing project that I started during the pandemic, because I realized what is the one thing that I would regret not doing if I died because of COVID, and that I can still do at home. And that was write this book. And so no time like the present. So I started it, still haven't finished it, but that will also be something that I'm talking about in the coming months.
Great. So you have another book. We had a question from the audience wanting to know if you had another book. Then is this going to be a book, or just going to be a series of paintings?
Oh no, this is going to be the national parks and animal stuff is probably going to be a series of paintings, not a book. Although maybe, I don't know. But the portrait book will be a book.
Okay. And I had put into the chat earlier, because we did have Gwen do another talk for Pride Month based upon crime against nature, because I really felt that book deserved to be seen after it had not been shown elsewhere. I gave the link to the YouTube channel, and this talk will go up on YouTube if other people missed it. The library has a YouTube channel, just YouTube/Princeton PL. We put a lot of our talks up there, and I encourage you to go back and check them out. And we are all looking forward to this. And I should say, Gwen also has a shop on what's called Redbubble. And we've had some people at the library who just love her work. But of course, as we all know, original paintings are rather pricey. So Gwen has made on her Redbubble shop, and you just got to, I think it's just a Gwen Paints. Is that what it is? Yeah. Just on Redbubble, search her name, and she has stickers up there, and you can get masks for your, she has a really cute mask that's says that you're vaccinated, or you can get t-shirts and prints. So if you are not able to drop $1,800 for a painting, you can go on there and get some. You can still be a supporter of Gwen and her work. Mick, are you selling? Oh, you have your Linda shirt on. Okay, yeah, show us your Linda's. everybody's got to go look them up as well. Mick, are you selling your work? Because I know we're not selling it at the library.
So it'll be my home studio. You have to visit. And so you'll have to come visit me.
Okay. So yeah, you know, and that's the one thing I love about curating an art exhibit at the library. It's totally up to the artist. They can just display their work. They can sell their work. They can do what, you know, it's a very open and inviting space. And we are, so yeah, my unexpected journey to being an art curator. You're my first official show that I curated on my own, and I hope I did a good job. If you've gone in to see it, let me know. And next up, we're planning to do also feature some, you know, the library tries to feature local artists or New Jersey artists as much as possible. But, you know, and so I think next up, we're going to try and do some illustrators to tie in with, we have our Princeton Children's Book Festival coming up in September, which is going to be virtual. So we thought as a way to make it more hands-on, we're going to try and do some picture book illustrators. And I know there's some in the Princeton Artist Directory that we'll be featuring, as well as some other local picture book illustrators, just again, keeping the fun and the joy. And so yes, thank you all. Is there any closing words from Mick or Gwen? And it's just been kind of a little bit of a library love fest tonight, which is lovely. My spirits needed it. Closing words, Gwen?
Just thank you.
Okay.
Truly, the work that you do, it's not valued enough, but it is by me and obviously by the people here. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, you are a true art advocate.
Yes.
And thanks again.
Yeah, as I say, I have no background in art. I know what I like, and I like what was on our walls this summer because it made me happy every time I went in. So thank you all for joining our talk. And again, this work will be on display until about Labor Day, September 1st. I don't think we've set a come down date. It's a little bit fluid, but probably September 1st is what we said. And it might step a day or two longer depending on our schedules. We don't have a start date for the next show yet, so we can be fluid there. But so you got all of August and a couple of weeks of July left to get in and see this. There's no excuse not to. And make sure you get your tiger sticker and make sure you interact and get a postcard. We've got lovely postcards at the desk for the show. And thank you all. Oh, there's the tiger sticker. He's peeking out. But you got to go and tell the librarian the fact that you learned about animals. Okay, so thank you, everybody. And I'm saying good night.